Hello, welcome to Be Well. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Jonathan from Your Why here in San Diego, and I'm honored to bring you these conversations with leaders in their field related to living a mindful life. As your moderator, I come to you with 30 plus years of experience in wellness and mental health. And I want to start us off with a quote, and this is a quote from an unknown author, but it relates to our topic today. Quote unquote, your breathing is your greatest friend. Return to it in all your troubles, and you will find comfort and guidance. Our topic today is breath work. I am honored to have our guest, Laura Fuller. Laura is a Master's of Arts and also a clinical hypnotherapist, a writer, a therapist, and a somatic educator who has studied body, mind, and spirit healing arts for over 20 years. And as I think about our topic, I think about there's a lot of things in life that we can do without, even some of the essentials. We can live for 40 days without food, up to 3 days without water. But if you think about it and experience it, we can only live for moments without our breath. And so today, Laura is going to take us through and tap into really the life force of breath and the breath work and bring us into greater awareness. If you go to her website, she'll share on there that breathing fully and consciously is how we are able to release what we're holding on to and open to incredible expansion of consciousness. Laura, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Really good to be here.
A pleasure. So start us off. Breath work. I know various practitioners will talk about breath work in a variety of different ways. So if you will, give us an operating definition of breath work.
Okay, and I also love the thing you just said about the breath being something we can't live without. And I think I'll kind of bring that in here too, because breath work is primarily a healing modality. Often people will think they'll go towards breath work because it's like, I want to learn how to breathe. But really, what it is it's a healing practice that can help release what is trapped in the nervous system that stands in the way of the breath becoming totally natural. Breath work refers to the consciously connected breath, which means a circular breath that's in and out through the mouth and with no pause between the exhale and inhale or the inhale and exhale. So it's a circular breath, and it's usually done in and out through the mouth. And so this isn't a way that we want to breathe all day long. It's more like a medicinal breath, and more like a healing practice. And it kind of gets at how it's a little bit of a funny concept that we think we need to learn how to breathe, right?
Well, we've been doing it for a good part of our life, and how conscious we are of it is a great question, because as you've spoken to right here, I think about there can be moments, lengths of time where I'm not aware of my breath, and then if I pause and think about it, it's like, am I breathing? Because I can notice, especially in stress, that I'm very shallow. And as I become aware, then I have the opportunity to do it a little bit differently.
Right. And as a healing modality, breathwork really reclaims it back as the right of a human and of the soul, and not somebody who's healing you from the outside in. So I'll often ask people who's done breath work before, right? And maybe a few people will raise their hand. And then I'm like, well, who has breathed? And so it's like, okay, everybody raise your hand. Everybody has breathed, but at the same time, everybody who has some awareness is like, my next question is, who's impressed by how long they can go on without breathing very all, right? And so it's this fundamental resource that we'll tend to reach for so many other things before that most accessible thing that really connects us to ourself. So in a sense, it's the most basic and also this gateway to a very sacred level of healing.
What I am intrigued by with what you've shared is I do a great deal of meditation, daily practitioner. And in doing such, my method is more inhaling through my nose, exhaling through my mouth. And even when I'm wanting to kind of center throughout the day, very quickly I can move to that space.
Yeah.
So I am intrigued by uh, the distinction between breathing in and out through your mouth. And so tell me why that format is of a healing nature.
Yeah. And to speak to what you just said of the breathing techniques that a lot of people come to breathing techniques to regulate stress. And at the same time, we're having some critique right now of like, how much should people have to regulate stress, right? Shouldn't we go to the sources, right? Like where corporations will bring somebody in to teach people how to calm down and deal with unreasonable situations. And so this is the other side of the coin of like, instead of finding a way to top down, calm ourselves down, it's making space for what is under the surface to
Mm.
rise up so that it can be processed and released. We can talk a little later about the philosophy and the trauma work side of it, but basically, when you breathe in and out through the mouth, again, it's not what you want to do all day long because generally we want to train ourselves to breathe through the nose for exercise and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But this really accesses the subconscious, and they're only just now starting to study this, but it'll calm down certain areas of the brain that can get in the way of our healing, and at the same time access the things that the subconscious impressions and memories that are running our life but that we're usually not aware of at all, you know. Now, as a healing modality, to go back to, what you said about we can't live without the breath,
Yes.
it is that personal access that we can really start from, as the ground of everything. Because, like, as a meditator, I'm one of the kind of people who can doubt everything.
Uh,
Um, you know, and you'll probably run into that of like people who can question everything, and that strong intellect, which is our protector and our friend most of the time, can really get in the way, right? And so the breath in and out through the mouth helps us go beyond that, beyond the ways we kind of have constructed the world. But also, it's something that's within your conscious choice. So, to the people who can question everything, I'll often say it's like, okay, close your mouth, plug your nose, and see how long you can question the breath, right? So,
that's a pretty good exercise. I
right?
think I answer very quickly.
Right. And it's like, okay, this is something I can trust, and I can use it to let go of some of those protectors. Um, and so I say that both as a philosophical thing, but that's also literally what it's doing in the brain, is it's bypassing the way that we have kind of constructed things that, like, just like survival strategies, right? We find ways to get through the moment, but then they become limiting.
Yes,
And so it's a way that we can align with ourselves, but also get past ourselves.
exactly. Because
I guess, yeah.
we have defense mechanisms that can often serve us in certain ways,
Mhm.
but it might not be to our best interest overall in terms of health and healing. Uh,
Exactly.
that mental construct that we cling to and hold on to, but may not serve us in the greater purpose of our life.
Exactly. And in moving forward, because this is what the breath does, is like every moment of our lives, we let this moment in and then we let it go. Right. And the healing of trauma is often described as the river of life starts flowing forward again rather than being stuck. And so many people have that experience of being stuck in one way or another, or intergenerationally of being stuck in a loop, and so probably everybody who finds themselves on this webinar is about trying to get that breath flowing forward again.
Interesting, and I like how you spoke to it in a sense of a continual breath in and out through the
Yeah.
mouth, and so you could see how that creates movement and flow in and of itself.
Yeah. Yeah, and it takes out that place of doubt. It's this opportunity to drop down below the mind into the body, and then the practice itself is to welcome everything. Now, one of the ways that one of the lineages that breathwork came to be was actually they started using it when they stopped getting to use psychedelics in prisons, when they stopped getting to have those. And
Interesting.
so that's one lineage, is actually a way to access the inner apothecary, to access non-ordinary states, but without losing control. So if anybody's worked with psychedelics before, you've heard the instruction I just gave. You've heard welcome everything, know that you're safe, right? But in this, your choice doesn't go away. You get to choose if to slow the breath down or to speed it up.
I it's interesting that for me, in the practice of mindfulness, that is also the framework of welcoming everything. Uh,
Yes.
Often in life, we want to hold on to and cling to those positive experiences, and life isn't always positive. And so
Mhm.
if things come up, or challenges come up, or discomfort, distress, we want to push it away, repel it, move on from it, deny it. And so the whole idea of mindfulness is in many ways to what you're speaking to in terms of welcoming everything, because you know it's going to pass as well, like
Right.
clouds in the sky. But the idea of an inner apothecary, that's a very rich analogy.
Yeah, I mean anything, and this is just one way to look at it, but really anything external is just a permission slip or something that's kind of reminding the body. Different chemicals people take in is just like reminding their body of, and breath work would be one of the practices that's restoring connection to the more mystical sides of life, that we're suffering from the fact that the dream world and the mystical spaces have been deleted.
So share a little bit more about that, because not everyone may understand, or when you speak to mysticism, what that means. And so in the
Yeah.
context that you're speaking to.
Well, I'd say to make it the most simple is most of us have been really well trained in the navigation of the outer world and have received little to no training on the navigation of the inner world, especially as a resource, as a resource for healing. That sometimes we come to points in life when, if we just look at the outer world, the walls are everywhere, there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And so that is this call to open up to the world of, whether you call it psyche or the great mystery or whatever it is, and the entry point is that inner landscape. And in that idea of welcome everything, most people especially if there's trauma, have become pretty afraid of the inner landscape.
So I want to come back to that, because you've referenced a couple of times trauma, and in my practice of mental health, I recognize in my belief that often when we don't deal with something in a conscious form or bring it to
Mm.
consciousness, shed light on it, it manifests in one way or another. It keeps kind of rearing its head, and often it'll grab the body in some ways in terms of
Absolutely.
sickness, illness, to like shake oneself to say, attend to me. And so it's interesting how you're alluding to that breath work allows you to go into the somatic, and allow that to bubble up to attend to. So if you will, share more how breath work relates to and deals with trauma.
Yeah, I think that people who approach breath work, they need to know that essentially it is trauma work. That's one aspect of it. Because some people go towards breathing as like they think, I don't want to feel anything. I want peace, right? But it's so interesting. The road to peace will involve whatever stands in the way, right? And so we kind of have to be prepared that it, if somebody was to do a breathwork ceremony of do this for a long period of time, they'd be feeling things in the present moment. It comes up to be felt, so in the question of what is trauma, is it something that when it happens we don't have the support or the resource we need to be able to process it. And so our system adapts around it, kind of like a tree that grows around a fence or something like this, and then those adaptations are brilliant, right? But eventually they become symptoms.
Mm.
um, and so breath work it can be trauma work. If you enter a breathwork ceremony, autobiographical stuff may come up, sensation may come up, um, but also more psychedelic stuff may come up, or just states of bliss and peace.
Mm.
And it's kind of like you never know what's going to come up when you enter in.
Mm.
But you do get to maintain that choice of, you could always slow down, you could always bring in more resource. So you trust where it takes you, but also know that you don't have to be overwhelmed by it.
Mm. So as you speak to it, the question that would come up for me is someone doing breath work, does it need to be facilitated? I could see, especially with trauma work, as someone enters into that the need for qualified support would be very beneficial, and actually maybe even essential in some cases to be able to support somebody in coming through.
Mm.
Uh, but for a lay person wanting to enter into breath work, can they also, as you talk about a breathwork ceremony, uh,
Mhm.
can they delve into some of these waters independent of support?
Yeah, and the practice we'll do today will be totally accessible, and anybody can use it anytime.
Great.
Um, and then breath work is also practiced in a group, which is where I use the word ceremony, where you kind of come to it and you land together. Right now, Zoom groups are pretty magical because now the container is literally a web all over the world, right? That's how big our circle is.
Yeah.
But it also can be done one to one, where there is that guidance. But I think the piece for me to bring into this is that I do it as somebody who's trained in somatic experiencing as well, in a way that is quite a bit more gentle in all ways.
Mm.
And so, very classically, breath work, breath workers were very psychologically confrontational,
Uh,
right? Because that was the sign of the times, right? And then also, there's a lot of forms where it is very intense, and the form I use is considered to be fierce, but totally gentle, but totally fierce, you know? And so it's not really cut and dry, like there will be things where it takes seeking support, and there will be things where people can navigate on their own. And I think there's a lot of attachment wounds healing in the world right now, where people maybe could do things alone, but that there'd actually be something healing and being held, and in a either in a group or with somebody else there, so that you don't have to figure it all out on your own.
yeah,
So yeah, it can be done on your own, but there's many options.
yeah, and I actually think of just the power of a group is just uh, amazing. It's that gestalt as you bring more people together, just the like-minded in practice, the ability to amplify the potential experience and benefit of it.
Yeah.
Uh, Anything more that you want to share just about the philosophy of breath work as healing? I really appreciate how you've moved into that. But anything else? I know people that have looked at breath work. It talks about releasing toxins and obviously calming the mind and the body and creating a certain vibrational energy. And I know there's those kind of things.
Mm.
Your focus, which I admire, is really for healing and also addressing trauma.
Yeah, and really all of those things are just different ways to say the same thing, you know? And it's so amazing, it's so interesting that breath has come forward so much this year, when at the same time people are recognizing, how sacred their breath is, and also recognizing how massive fear is and how that affects. To say just a little more on the trauma piece, we have fight and flight, right? But then up above it, freeze, dissociate, collapse. Those
Mm.
things that happen when we're in mortal fear, um, are where the body starts using oxygen differently.
Mm.
It's like we actually cryogenically freeze ourselves to say, okay, when this is over, I'll breathe again,
Mm.
you know? And so to increase oxygen to certain parts of the brain and to say, no, I can open up and feel this, they're finding that to also be true physically, right? Where the body tries to consolidate emotion and then carries it around forever, right?
Yeah.
So part of trauma work is titration, resource, using the resource of the breath, the infinite breath, right? Whatever I'm walking through, I'm not walking through this painful moment in the past so that I could relive the pain. I'm walking through it so that I could breathe breath, which is light, life, love,
Yeah.
into that place when I was afraid,
Yeah.
you know?
I,
And so, go ahead. Sorry.
I think about the times that we're in and
Yeah.
just talk about, I'll just hold my breath till I get through this. Uh, that's a little bit more difficult to do in an unending marathon. In a sprint, maybe, but in
Yeah.
this undefined marathon that we're in, it just depletes the resources. And so I
Yeah.
could see the benefit of stepping in and being able to do the breath work to release as we go along.
And it is really, all of those parts go together, the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, because to walk through these times, we do have to get to a higher level. We cannot use common vision, right? Because, like common vision, you're just going to be terrified,
Yeah,
you know, you're going to lose choice,
yeah.
so it really is essential that place of finding resource within it. I guess to speak to the philosophy just a little bit more briefly is, so I said it before, of like the idea is you welcome everything. Like there's nothing to get rid of, there's nothing to get towards. You just embrace everything. And what that does is it teaches us the true capacity of our heart, because the mind is going to go around all day th- saying that's wrong, that's not right. It's going to go around saying I can't possibly feel this is too much for me. And even though those thoughts are trying to protect us, they're really heavy. And so the first instruction is to just welcome everything with the resource of that breath as light, life, love. The second philosophy is that the idea of an inner healer, that inner guidance will come forward to guide you through, um, and that we can kind of trust that there may be the repetition of our introjected bad voices of the past, right? But then there'll be another voice that does want to lead you through it, and it's supporting
Yes.
the self-healing, you
That
know?
that other voice that wants to be heard, that knows there's another way.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is sometimes quite amazing, the emergence of that from hopelessness, you
So
know?
I'm hoping that you'll give us what you've defined as a taste of breath
Taste of breath. Yeah.
experience.
So what I've described is, and if anybody would like to, I'll be doing a longer breath work. You could call it a ceremony, a circle, whatever it is, where we would breathe for about 50 minutes. Um, and if anybody wants to come and try that out, you'd go through that inner emotional journey. But this connected breath can also be used just to kind of pierce through whatever's going on and connect to yourself. Um, So I'll guide people through that right now. And it's also something that can be used to really, you could say, connect to yourself, connect to the divine, whatever words resonate, connect to that infinite breath or just life itself. And so I'm just going to do it first by describing the breath again. And people can start to take this in. But basically, it's a breath through an open mouth. You gently open the jaw, and it makes a very quiet aha sound. It's almost primary to the ujjayi breath in yoga. It goes like this. And you can try a couple like that, just making that aha sound. And the last two elements for this are that you connect the inhale right to the end of the exhale. You take out that pause. And then you direct the breath right into your heart. So if you want, you could even place the hand on your heart. Now, again, this is just one of many forms of breath. Yeah. And just let that rest for a moment as you're ready. And just notice for a moment. Notice anything you notice. We'll try it again in a moment. But like, Jonathan, what's that like for you?
It's just very calming, but also just like a quickening of this present moment.
Mm,
It's a different type of breath than I'm used to, just by, as you said, not taking out that pause and linking them.
right. Yeah, exactly. And I love what you said of calming and just this present moment, like to wake ourselves up, right? Like to wake up. So, there's the positive experience. I'll often describe this. One kind of positive experience is experiencing positive things, right? But it's also a positive experience, like if there is pain, if there is sadness, to be able to contact that gives this poignancy and a connection with self. So just to let everybody know, if there's bliss, it's good, but if there's contact with the upwelling, that's good too, of just really having contact with your own heart. Um, and I'll say there's other forms where you'll breathe through the belly or breathe like a wave, or where you'll practice the retention. This one, very heart centered. Um, and if it feels good, what we'll do is just like 20 connected breaths there. Does that sound okay?
Sounds wonderful.
Wonderful. Okay. And then, so people could do this seated, or they could do it lying down if they'd like. You want to do it where there's no pain or as little as possible. And just let the jaw gently open and start to connect to that breath. Allow it to make that gentle ah with the inhale and ha with the exhale. Connecting the inhale right to the end of the exhale. And directing it right into your own heart. And we call upon this breath as oxygen, but also as life, light, love. And allowing these breaths to just bring you to whatever connection it is that you're seeking. And usually, with this shorter length of time, there's more of a connection to that bliss, calm, access that comes. And also, if there are emotions, just know that you can welcome everything, emotions, sensations. Just trust the body. And as you're ready, just let the breath go. It may be somewhere around 20 breaths. And just everybody notice whatever you notice, and there may be a part of you that also is interested in playing with it, of like there's more, we could do it faster, we can kind of go for it, or we can do it more gently.
That was,
Um,
that was beautiful, Laura. And I could see how um, greater duration may allow to kind of step in deeper and get past those blocks and just open to allow what it wants to bubble up. And I like how you said play around with it, quicken it, slow it, uh, because as you've said, breath is that life force, and allow it just to move and see what in life wants to move through.
Yeah, and it's such an interesting thing where maybe for generations people had to just survive, right? That was the main thing, and we're in this place now where healing there's space for it, and then even there's necessity, and just even so many years ago, I don't know how many to say, but like emotions would be seen as something in the way, or inner stuff would be seen as baggage, and that
Yeah,
play around is like almost like we become these people on a journey, like wanting to see what's there, you
yeah.
know, delighting in it even.
I love it. It allows for a much richer, just versus just buck up.
Right.
Allows just a
So
rich.
boring.
Laura, I apologize. Our time has gone very quickly, and anything that you want to leave us with? You've given us a lot already. Is there anything else I could get from you? Anything else you want to offer us to take this into our life? You've given us great tools. I appreciate the resource that people want to go to your website and participate in a greater experience or a deeper experience.
Well, I'll just say it's something that is accessible at any time. If you ever need support, you get it, but it is that reclaiming of healing from the inside out, healing without shame, healing that you don't have to go to somebody above you for, And so this is the time for, really sovereignty and deep connection, So just for people to know that this is a tool for them to connect with the inner wisdom, inner healer, and to let themselves do that a little more often. Like if it feels good, you could even do it every day.
Love it. I love not only inner healer, but that inner apothecary. That's
Yeah. Well,
Laura.
thank you so much. This is great fun.
Thank you very much. Really value the gift and resource that you've given us today. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful holiday season. And everyone that joined us today, thank you very much. And until our next time together, please be well. Thank you,
Thank
Laura.
you. Yeah.